Hey everyone, it's Allie, and my god, some big changes are coming to Path of Exile's Endgame. I am more excited about this upcoming patch than I was about the currency patch, as this addresses a lot of the massive and major issues people were having with the game. We don't exactly know when this is going to come out. They just said a future patch, and we do not have the patch notes for them yet, which GG also said will come out soon. We don't know when, but I'll try to link it in the description as soon as I can, and I'll put it in a pinned comment for this video. But I feel like the single best place to start this video is going to be to talk about the endgame and monster balance changes that are really going to fix a lot of things. First off, if you didn't know, once you get to tier 6 maps, you lose 10% resistance, as if you went to a new act, and in tier 11, you lose another 10%, meaning you don't only have to deal with the negative 60 for getting through all 6 acts, but you have to deal with another 20% on top of that, meaning your character by default starts at negative 80. From the way I understand this, I'm going to assume that this means they're completely getting rid of those resistance penalties, meaning you just need 20% less resistance to res cap. Some people were speculating that this might mean that's all just at once at the start instead of it being spread out, which I don't think is going to be the case, as GG is trying to make this game new player friendly, and that would be unbelievably brutal if as soon as you get to endgame, you just immediately lose 30% res. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 maps were already pretty difficult for new players. Making you just lose 20% more res is just not going to be it, and I highly doubt that that is the way this is meant to be interpreted. They're also going to drastically reduce chaos damage in the endgame, which is, I don't know how to put it, the best change they could have possibly said. Everyone's problems and almost everyone's complaints outside of on-death effects one-shotting them were chaos damage hits being unbelievably overtuned. And well, I really hope this drastically tones them down, because getting elemental resistance was already hard enough. Trying to fit chaos resin was basically impossible and unbelievably expensive on gear. And even if you had 75% chaos res, you still got randomly chunked for a quarter to half your health out of nowhere. I'm super excited about this change, because this, plus the Ellie res change, if it is meant to be interpreted the way we interpreted it, is going to make it so endgame is substantially less harder than it was before. They're also reducing the crit multiplier on enemies by 40% less. I didn't know crits were that big of an issue, but if they're being nerfed in almost half, that should probably help quite a bit with some of the random one-shots people are experiencing. So I'm really excited for these 3 changes together. Finally, they're nerfing a few modifiers. The purple crystals, the volatile crystals that sometimes spawned that rares exploded on death, are being completely removed from the game. They were basically impossible to see, so I'm glad for that, because probably 25% of my deaths were due to volatile crystals. And they are making it so the Siphon Flash Charges modifier is now nerfed by 90%, because it was apparently 10 times stronger than it should have been. I guess they accidentally added an extra 0, so that's kind of nice. I've noticed that mod sometimes being pretty bad as well. I'm super excited for these changes. Endgame just sounds so much more fun to play, and is going to drastically, hopefully, reduce the amounts of random one-shots that people were encountering. They're also going to change how the schemas around a little bit. They are making it so the first boss is a little bit easier. They are making it so you now take up to 35% less honor damage based on how close you are to monsters, meaning melee don't go through pure hell trying to do trial the schemas, as quite a lot of melee players have complained. And most importantly, I'm sure you've all noticed, if you get ignited inside of a trial, you basically lose all of your honor. Well, it turns out that damage over time in there was doing 3 times the amount of damage it was supposed to do, and honor resistance was only applying at 2/3 of the efficiency that it should have. I don't know how that actually happened, but well, that's being changed. So yay, we don't immediately die dots anymore. And hopefully this should make it so at least the first trial is substantially easier to do for new players, and the rest of trials should hopefully be a little bit easier to not have to worry about playing Dance Dance Revolution with all the damage over time effects. Next up, we have a few character and item balance changes, most specifically dealing with charms, where we are now going to find the additional charm slot modifiers on belts a lot more common, meaning we don't all just play with 1 charm slot at all times. They've also nerfed lightning damage contribution to electrocute, meaning Kotokos are not going to be as strong anymore for being able to freeze everything. And they are changing freezes a little bit to where it's not going to be as easy to chain freeze enemies. A lot of people ask me what this change means for my gas arrow build, as we are now a cold build. And this is basically not going to be relevant for 95% of the gameplay that you're going to be doing. It's only going to be relevant on bosses that end up living more than 1 or 2 freezes in total. Very minor change. You'll literally not know it's even there, but this might potentially be pretty major for other builds, such as cast and freeze builds, which, well, people were still trying to make them work, and now they are substantially nerfed once again. And finally, we are getting some pretty big skill and support gem changes, which I'm really looking forward to. They are making some improvements to shield skills, to bow skills, especially the frenzy charge generation ones, to bone spells and chaos damage over time spells, which is really exciting, as a lot of people were trying to play Essence Drain, and well, just did no damage. Various crossbow skills, which is pretty exciting to see. Crossbow skills were already pretty good, but hopefully this will make a lot more of them even more meta. And finally, buffing some underachieving quarterstaff skills. Pretty exciting changes. We don't know exactly what they mean by these buffs. I'm a little bit sad that spells aren't being buffed here, as spells absolutely need God right now. But hey, something is better than nothing at least. We are getting some buffs. And then finally, they are adding in a few new supports, and they are making it so the exposures are a little bit easier to use, with them losing their less damage multipliers on them, instead gaining a mana multiplier. I'm really excited about these skill changes. We're going to have to wait for the patch notes to see exactly what they do. But hey, if this means some new skills can potentially now be strong enough to be considered viable to completely play around and not feel like you're doing no damage in the end game, I'm all up for it. And this might potentially give you some new build ideas to potentially consider. I can't tell you how excited I am for all these changes. I pretty much screamed my lungs out when I was reading these on my stream, and I was just sitting there with a smile on my face the whole time, absolutely giddy and excited over them, because them nerfing chaos damage and them making resistances easier to obtain are probably some of the biggest complaints everyone's been having, and I'm just so glad that they're actually listening. Still doesn't make up for the cast and freeze nerfs, and still doesn't make up for the fact that they're still nerfing it again with this patch, but hey, GG's at least trying, and I'm happy to see some buffs for our characters and some nerfs for the game rather than them doing nothing but nerfing skills. If you'd like to discuss this any further, feel free to leave a comment in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to discuss any of these points further, or you're free to come by my stream and either come and hang out with all the other kitties and be a part of our community, or ask me any questions you might have there. With all said, kitties, I can't wait for the patch notes. I can't wait for this patch to drop, and I'm super excited, and I hope to see you all in the next video.